You know, it's been a good while since I've done a Sonic video, and by now, Frontiers should have all its DLC. So I guess it's time to go back to the roots. Last year, I made a review of the most recent entry in the Sonic franchise, Sonic Frontiers, and to make a long story short, I loved it. I thought the story was great until the end, the open zones were fun to traverse, the boss fights were incredible, and the music was phenomenal. Of course, things like subpar animation in some areas and the laughably bad poppin' and the just okay cyberspace stages were issues, but none of them stopped me from loving the game. Not long after the release of Frontiers though, Sega announced that we would be getting 3 waves of DLC for the game, all for free. With the promises of new challenges, improvements, and even a new story, fans were hyped. And over the course of this year, all 3 waves have dropped to some positive reception. I know you guys were probably thinking that I should have covered each DLC wave as they came out, but to be honest, after the year of Sonic, I figured you all and myself needed a long break after that. But now I've gone 10 months without making a Sonic-focused video, so now's the time to head back to the Blue Blur. In this video, I'll be discussing each individual update in the order they came out, and discuss what I love and don't love about each part of each update. So without further ado, let's jump into Update 1. So the first update is naturally the smallest of the group, with only some mild changes to the core experience. First things first, they added these music notes around each island which you can collect to expand the new jukebox with various songs from prior games. This is a great addition as it can give you reason to explore some areas that weren't really important before, most notably on Rhea Island, and even made sure to pick specific songs that fit each specific island, which is a great detail. Some people might be bothered by the fact that each note is visible on the map as it doesn't provide the option to explore for the notes yourself, but considering the alternative is running around the entire island aimlessly searching for them while having no idea if you've even gotten them all or not, I'm not bothered by it. They also added various quality of life changes such as a quick restart in the cyberspace stages and allowing you to upgrade your speed and rings in bulk rather than one at a time. I've never used the former, but I'm glad the latter's here. Oh yeah, there's also photo mode. I've never used it, but it's there. The 2 biggest additions in this update are the cyberspace challenges and the battle rush. The battle rush is a mode where you go through a series of challenges featuring each enemy type from each island. The goal is to defeat them all as fast as possible, and at the end, you'll face off against the island's signature titan. Part of me wishes that there was an easier way to refight the titans, as they were the best parts of the game by far, but hey, at least we get to refight them at all. The challenges themselves are really fun and feel satisfying when you do manage to get all the S ranks. Plus, when you do manage to get all the S ranks, you unlock extreme difficulty, which locks all your stats to level 1, makes the S rank times even stricter, and worst of all, you die in a single hit. Now, personally, I have yet to attempt this mode myself because I just don't have the time to go through the whole game again right now, but I do want to try streaming in the future, so who knows, maybe that'll be a good topic for a stream. As for the cyberspace challenges, it's just a matter of going through each island's cyberspace stage as fast as possible, and the reward for beating it with all S ranks is the power boost being usable in the cyberspace stages. Something that doesn't really change anything to be honest, especially in the 2D sections. This mode is just fine to me, not overly offensive or anything, just kinda there. And that's pretty much it for Update 1. Simple stuff all around, and overall a good update. Could there have been more? Yeah, but at the same time, we really shouldn't have expected anything massive for the first DLC. Don't want to blow the load just yet, you know? That kind of stuff is reserved for Update 3, with Update 2 only leading up to the big one. Speaking of which... This is where the game starts to significantly change. To start with, this update was released on Sonic's birthday, so one of the additions was the aesthetic of everything being overhauled. The UI got these colorful banners, there are balloons everywhere, a Sonic rendition of Happy Birthday to You is playing, and Sonic and company had their own birthday outfits, which honestly look more goofy than anything. But these are just aesthetical. The real meat comes with the new Coco. They added in these extra challenges around the islands that are designed to test your skill and mastery of the game's mechanics, and your reward for beating them is a special Coco that once handed over to the Elder Coco will increase your boost gauge. Yeah, the reward isn't that worth it since the temporary unlimited boost trick already exists, but even so, I really enjoyed the challenges. They're all fun to platform through and some of these get really challenging. They're all manageable with practice, but you will be tested by more than a few of them. The other big thing this update adds are these special challenges around the islands. All you gotta do is collect enough points by doing literally anything within a certain time frame, and you can increase the points you get by collecting these orbs. Much like the new Coco, these challenges are pretty fun and challenging. A lot of them can be really easy, but some of them require careful planning to pull off successfully. And your reward for S-ranking all of them is none other than the Spin Dash. This thing is so much fun. It's akin to the boost where you hold down the left trigger to roll around, but you can also charge it up by crouching and spamming the left trigger, and even prepare a spin dash mid-air. The amount of fun I had with the spin dash is staggering. Heck, when used on ramps, you can basically fly with it. And that's pretty much all there is in Update 2, aside from New Game Plus and the option to turn off the set camera angles for special attacks. Easily a more beefy and better update than the first. While the previous one made small changes that were more light fixes than anything, this one makes the game even better. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they truly delivered on what they promised. Now the only thing that needs to be fixed is the final boss. And lucky for us, Update 3 is here to do just that. Oh boy, Update 3. This is the big one. The one that promised to not only fix the last part of the story and the final boss, but also give us other playable characters through Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. And it absolutely delivered. Given that this is the biggest update, it'll take a bit to cover everything, so let's start with the new story. First of all, to access this new last act, you have to enter this golden ring right where you spawn in when playing Uranos Island for the first time. Doing so takes Sonic to an alternate timeline where Sage tells him that out of all her calculations, there was one so unlikely that she didn't consider it, yet given the present circumstances, it could be the one that leads to victory. This time, the plan is to bring Sonic's friends back to their current cyberspace states while also bringing back Sonic's cyber corruption. Amy, Tails, and Knuckles will have to do all they can to find the Chaos Emeralds, and Sonic will have to complete specific trials to convert the cyber corruption into a new power to use against the End. Now then, let's talk playable characters. First up is Amy, since she's the first one we get to play as. Looking at all the other times she's been playable, Amy has almost never been good. At best, she's a reskin of Sonic, and at worst, she's in Sonic 06. It wasn't until she was added to Sonic Origins that Amy is actually fun to play as in a Sonic game. So it was quite a surprise to find out that she is the second best playable character after Sonic. Every character starts off with level 1 stats and almost no moves, but with some grinding you could get them all up to speed in no time. In Amy's case, she could triple jump, glide with her cards, swipe and spin with her cards, homing attack multiple enemies at once, perform a special side loop with her hammer, and form a spinning wheel with her cards while riding her hammer like a broomstick. Okay, I will admit it is odd that they focus so much on her tarot cards rather than her hammer for combat, but considering she's in a cyberspace where she has digital powers, I can let it slide. Oh, and as a bonus, her parry can poison any enemy so they take damage for a short period of time. As for Knuckles, he's regrettably the worst character to play as. He can throw punches, glide around, perform a drill attack, perform a flaming stomp, and climb on specific walls. Yeah, Knuckles can't climb around normally, but I'm not too bothered by it since this game wasn't designed for him. Or any of the other characters for that matter. That said, I do have some other criticisms. For one, climbing around as him is incredibly slippery. It doesn't start off too bad with level 1 speed, but even then, the camera can sometimes have an aneurysm when Knuckles switches sides of the wall you're climbing. For two, his gliding is the startup animation, which doesn't bother me personally, but the turning while gliding is incredibly stiff, which does bother me. I would say he turns like a truck, but the gun truck exists, so I can't say that. What especially hurts is that turning while gliding towards the camera gets really awkward. This issue does become less bad when you get the upgrade that lets Knuckles glide without falling, but clearly this needed more tweaking. Now on to Tails, the middle child of the three. As you'd expect, Tails can fly with his tails for a limited amount of time, has a gun to shoot enemies with, can perform a drill stomp, but weirdly can't homing attack enemies. Instead, he just throws an endless supply of wrenches, which is weird, I'll admit, but to play devil's advocate, he doesn't really need it thanks to his flight. He can also use the Cyclone from SA2 to either fire a big laser, which isn't really that useful in the long run, or legit fly around the island so long as you have enough boost. That latter option completely breaks this game in half, especially with the unlimited boost trick. And you know what? I have too much fun with it to even complain. Though what I can complain about to a degree is that you can't change the height of your flight while flying with Tails' tails. To be fair, you don't really need to thanks to the cyclone, but it does get annoying when you barely miss a platform because you weren't high enough. Though I guess I should address the big thing about this update, that being the challenge. Now, Frontier's difficulty outside of extreme can get pretty tough, but nothing unmanageable. However, it would appear that enough people complain about the game being too easy, quote unquote, and in response, Sonic Team decided to crank the dial up from hard past extreme to you. I'm not kidding. All the enemies you fight in this update will knock you flat on your ass in a matter of seconds, unless your stats are fully maxed out. And even then, it'll take a while to beat them considering how spongy the new Guardians are. Not to mention the Trial Towers. Good golly goodness are these towers tall, dark, and daunting. The amount of ridiculous platforming they throw at you is insane. And if you aren't careful, you will fall all the way back down. Thank goodness you can hold the parry and prevent your fall, because without that, these would be too much. Never mind the challenges on top of the towers, which seem to be out of order. Like, each tower has a specific challenge on top that involves an incredibly fast version of a normal enemy, with their stats being locked to level 1. The first one has the standard mooks, the second one has the spinning blade enemies, the third has panther enemies, and the fourth has the ninja guardian. The reason I say these are out of order is because their difficulty varies wildly in comparison to each other. The normal mooks are really tough at first, but can be taken care of with practice. The spinning blade enemies are the hardest ones as they require a very specific tactic to beat or else you'll fail. The panthers aren't too different from the normal variants, and the ninja being faster doesn't change much in how you beat it. Bear in mind, you fight these guys in this specific order, and it feels like it should have gone 4, 3, 1, and 2, rather than 1, 2, 3, and 4. But all that's tame compared to Master King Coco's trial. This trial is you go through all the previous Titan fights with level 1 stats, no rings to replenish anywhere, and the perfect parry. What's the perfect parry, you ask? Well, normally you can hold down the parry for as long as you want, but in this trial, the perfect parry can only be held for a fraction of a second on hard mode, with some slight leniency on easy and normal. Doesn't sound too bad yet, you just gotta get good at perfect parrying. Except the Titan fights were not designed for the perfect parry. Typically in any other game, and even in this game, the parry activates when the attack makes contact. But with the Titan fights, a lot of the hitboxes on the attacks don't activate when their attack makes contact. Some of them do, like with Wyvern's missiles and Knight's shield, and a lot of the others don't, leading to a lot of mistimed inputs because you just can't figure out the timing for the parry. This could probably be manageable if your ring count was replenished after every fight, but like I mentioned before, it isn't. However many rings you have by the end of the last fight carry over into the next. So unless you're really fast at parrying and beating the Titans, you'll likely run out of rings before you reach the end. Honestly, I don't know how I beat this trial. A ton of people I've seen have recommended just swallowing your pride and switching to easy, but because I've apparently devolved into a stubborn masochist, I absolutely refused to do so, and somehow got stupid good at Giganto and made it through Wyvern due to what felt like luck with barely enough time to beat Knight. I can only imagine what this trial is like on Extreme, and if there's anyone watching this who dared to attempt it on Extreme, you have my sympathies. Anyways, if you manage to beat all that, Sonic gains the new power from the Master King Coco and obtains the Chaos Emeralds from his friends. The following Supreme fight is the same fight it's been, but it's after the fight where the things become far more intense. The End descends on the planet and proceeds to take control of the defeated Supreme to use as an avatar for its return. Supreme then rather uncomfortably grows 5 extra arms and becomes, as the fans have called it, the Supreme End. At first, Super Sonic can't do anything to it. Its attacks barely phase it, and the purple energy balls can't be parried and lower your ring count. But after a couple hits, Sonic harnesses the new power to achieve an even more powerful state, which in the files is stated to be Super Sonic 2. Now in Phase 1, you're expected to unhook the wire on Supreme's head, because not doing so will cause Supreme to regenerate its health, but the how is not communicated very well. What you're supposed to do is dodge while mid-combo to reach the wire and then attack it. But unless you talk to the Master King Coco beforehand, nothing really tells you that. Personally, I was able to figure this out after 1 or 2 tries, but I can't really fault anyone for being stumped here. Anyways, the rest of this fight is utterly amazing. The attacks are relatively simple, with the purple orbs now being parryable with the perfect parry, and some cool sequences with the claw swipes. Plus, the quick side-loop animations have Sonic lifting Supreme into the air with platforms and then brutally crushing it. And you people say that Sonic is for kids. Now, another thing that people complain about is when Supreme reaches half health. What you're supposed to do is quick side loop the port on Supreme's back to get the gun out and side loop the gun to transition to phase 2. But it seems like almost everyone doesn't like this because it isn't communicated very well. Meanwhile, I noticed the homing reticle on the port and instinctively side looped the port, and when the gun came out, I instinctively side looped that too because hey, Sonic side looped Knight's sword earlier in the game. I figured I had to do the same thing here, and I was right. Lucky me, I guess. In any case, after that, Eggman gets control of Supreme's gun, and Supreme fires a volley of shots at him. Sage and Sonic's friends put up a barrier to protect him, and now the goal is to defeat Supreme before it destroys the barrier. Phase 2 plays out mostly the same, with a few differences. For one, Supreme will charge up a super attack that you'll need to interrupt the same way you disconnected the wire, and parry to stop it. And apparently some people also don't like this because of, yet again, lack of communication. Meanwhile, I'm over here figuring it out first try due to pure instincts. I guess I'm just built different. And hey, stopping the attack rewards you with a Grand Slam of Sonic decimating Supreme a million times over. This game is more anime than Sonic X. Another difference is that at some point, Supreme will fire this energy ball that knocks a super out of Sonic and reduces your ring count to 100, only for Sonic to transform back in a badass cutscene. Apparently this attack can also kill you if your ring count is below 100, but that never happened to me, so I don't know. Lastly, the track that plays with this phase is a remix of the main theme, I'm Here. Phase 1 had an orchestral remix of it, which was cool, but this remix blows it completely out of the water. In fact, despite the competition, this might be the best song in the game. Once its health is depleted, Sonic kicks Supreme high into the air, kicks it 50 more times for good measure, and then super punches it even higher before flying into Supreme's gun to be fired at Supreme while at full power. Don't even bother asking if this fight is better than the original final boss. It's no contest. This is the fight this game deserved, and I'm so glad it's here. Though looking online for others' opinions, it would appear that some people prefer the end to the Supreme end, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. And hey, if you really do, the original final boss is still there to be enjoyed in the base game. Though I will say something about all the people who believe this fight is genuinely bad. I guarantee you that everyone who believes that has only fought the Supreme end once and are solely relying on that first time. They don't actually care about refighting it with the previous knowledge to become better and subsequently enjoy the fight more. They just go off the confusion they had the first time, despite the fact that it was the first time. AKA the attempt where you're the most likely to look like a jackass for not understanding something. So basically premiere me in Jay's reviews. Exactly. Unless you spend so long fighting a boss that it's become obvious that even when you get really good at it, the fight is still bad like with Master King Coco's trial, you really shouldn't rely on your first go around to accurately judge a boss. Don't call something out for being bad just because you're owning incompetence during your first attempt. Call it out for something that isn't clear even after you get good. If the Supreme end was truly so impossible to figure out that you were stuck for hours on end, then fine, go ahead and call it bad all you want. But if your frustration solely comes from that first attempt, then you probably just weren't very good at the fight then. Try it again and get better. Maybe then you'll find it more enjoyable. And hey, if you still don't, that's fine too. I'm not gonna shame you for it so long as you don't present your opinion as a fact. So that was all the DLC for Sonic Frontiers. If it wasn't obvious to you already, this was a fantastic ride. From small changes to complete game overhauls, it was simply a blast from the first change to the last. And I still can't believe that we got all of this for free. Literally any other company would have charged at least $10 for Update 3 alone. But Sega and Sonic Team were generous enough to give us all this great content with no additional cost. Does that mean my initial rating and ranking has changed thanks to this? Yes and no. While yes, the initial 8.5 out of 10 I gave it has gone up to a 9, maybe 9.25 out of 10, I still only deem it my third favorite Sonic game overall. in one part due to me still liking Colors and Unleashed more, and also due to many problems in the base game still being present. The animation for the side stories is still not very good. Hell, in the Update 3, they practically gave up and didn't even animate the characters' mouths. The cyberspace stages are still not very interesting, regardless of the new ones in Update 3, which I didn't mention because I don't care. The game can still wear you down as you marathon it, and the poppin' is still on the level of Sun or the Arrival. Well, the original anyway. Still doesn't change my overall appreciation for the game, but they do keep it from moving any higher in my Sonic game ranking. Now, do I have any other changes to previous rankings I've added Frontiers to? A couple, actually. For one, the worst boss in the game has changed from Wyvern to Supreme. I actually didn't find Supreme all that bad the first time, and frankly still don't compared to everyone else. But upon revisiting it, I can realize that it's indeed the weakest boss. For 2, I would like to place the Supreme End at number 3 on the final boss ranking. But that doesn't mean I'm removing the end because it's still in the game, which means the ranking is no longer a lovely round 40. Yet. Thirdly, and this will probably be subject to change, I think I'm Here Revisited is the new best song in the game, though it is very close. And lastly, I think it's about time to answer the big question everyone's been asking me. Do I prefer Sage or Infinite? Who do I think deserves the number 6 spot more on the Sonic villain ranking? Well, I've thought about it a lot over the course of the year, and I've finally come to a decision. As much as I love Infinite, as much as I'm probably his only defender in the entire fanbase, I ultimately have to confess that he's better than Sage.
What?
I know I probably sparked some outrage by saying that, so please let me explain. Yes, Sage is a great character. She's got a cool design, her character arc is simple but brilliant, and compared to Infinite, she's an all-around better character, but is she a better villain? Well, in terms of her villainous presence and actions, she sicks the Titans on Sonic, she fires one laser blast at him which gets blocked by Knuckles, and that's it. The rest of the game, she's either admiring Sonic's character from a distance, or just telling him that he's doomed no matter what and should f**k off. Not really all that intimidating of a villain. Meanwhile, Infinite has presence, power, and intimidation. He's never beaten until the end, speaks like an anime villain, and has a kick-ass theme song. Yes, he does have some wasted potential, but I still like him for what he is. Sure, his boss fights are easier than they should be, but 3 easy boss fights are still better than none at all. I hope you guys can understand me when I say all that. Either way, next time will be the Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Sonic Superstars double review. That should be a fun time when it's done. See you next time, everybody!